have started learning about organizational culture, and in the previous couple of lectures we learned what is organizational culture, why organizational culture matters, what are the various types of organizational culture, the nature of organizational culture. And when we talk about the types of culture, we learnt about what is a strong culture, what is a weak culture, what are toxic work cultures. And if we have to clearly summarize as to what is the difference between a toxic culture and a healthy culture, we can easily identify that a toxic culture is fear based and ego driven, whereas a healthy culture would be empathetic and value driven. And we learnt it with the help of certain examples. Communication in a toxic culture, it is often withheld and it is top down, whereas in a healthy culture it is more transparent and a two-way communication. The morale in a toxic work culture is always low, people are anxious, there is distrust among peers, there is distrust within the team, people don't trust their leaders and leaders don't trust their team members or people working under them. Whereas in a healthy culture, the morale is high, people feel safe, and when we talk about safety, it is the psychological safety, where as employees you can speak up, where you are not afraid of being judged, where you can openly communicate, bring up your ideas, speak up, you have a voice and you feel motivated. Toxic cultures, the turnover is high, whereas in a healthy culture, the turnover is of course less. And talking about employee voice, it is often suppressed when there is a toxic work culture in the organization, but employee voice is often encouraged in the healthy cultures. So, this was just a summary of the difference between a toxic culture and a healthy culture. So, moving further, the topic for today's discussion would be creating and changing organizational culture. So, where does organizational culture come from? How is it created? And most importantly, how can we change culture? Because when we were discussing about the nature of organizational culture, on one hand we say that it has to be stable, yet it has to be adaptive, means according to the environment, according to the changes in the environment, you have to be adaptive, you have to change the culture of your organization. Now, that does not mean that the change has to be an abrupt change, a sudden change, or everything related to the culture has to be changed. So, you must have that understanding that what needs to be changed and why it needs to be changed. And on the same note, you have to communicate this to the people, because you all know that change is something which every one of us would resist. People do not like to be changed. So, you have to clearly communicate that why this change is necessary. So, we will learn about all these aspects of creating and changing organizational culture. So, as we all have by now understood that the organizational culture is the invisible yet a powerful force that shapes how people behave, how they interact with each other and how they make decisions within the organization. So, it is a shared set of values, beliefs, assumptions and behaviors that develop over time and define the internal environment of an organization. So, again reiterating my point that cultures are not built overnight, they take time to be developed. But creating a strong intentional culture is not accidental. It is not something that would just occur or that would just happen accidentally. It is a strategic process that begins with the leadership and is reinforced across people, across the entire systems and the structure of the organization. So, it is not something that just abruptly happened. It is a well thought of strategic process which begins with the leaders, with the founders of the organization. And these founders, they also make sure that it is imbibed by all people across all branches, and the entire systems and structures also follow that culture. So, a well crafted culture becomes the heartbeat of the organization, which would influence everything from employee engagement to customer satisfaction and even long term sustainability of the organization. So, you are not just influencing the employee engagement, but you are also impacting your organization's sustainability. So, why is creating culture important? Number one, it gives direction and purpose. So, a strong culture aligns everyone with the organization's mission and vision, and it answers the basic question, why are we here and what do we stand for? So, we here means the organization. What does the organization stand for? Does the organization stand for ethics, loyalty, trust, innovation, agility, customer focus, products? What do you stand for as an organization? And that is very well understood through the mission and vision statements of the organization. So, broadly, if you have to understand an organization, you have to understand its vision and mission, and that would give you a sense of clarity as to what this organization stands for. So, it gives you direction and purpose. Then the culture drives employee engagement and motivation. So, people want to belong. If I am working for an organization, I want to belong to that organization. That organization becomes a part of my identity. I want to take pride in saying that I come from this organization. So, when employees feel connected to a shared culture, they are more loyal, they are more productive, and at the same time innovation also flows in. So, it is of utmost importance that people should feel connected to this shared culture, which we call the organizational culture. Then it enhances the consistency. So, culture provides a consistent way of doing things. So, in an organization there would be one system, one consistent way of doing things. So, people would come, people would go, and the external conditions would also change, but their behaviors and the way things are done, that would remain consistent or constant. Why? Because that is what is the culture of the organization. So, that is the importance of creating an organizational culture. So, it improves decision making also. So, when values are clear, employees can make autonomous decisions that align with the organization's expectations. So, it is very important as employees that we have to be aligned with the organization's expectations. Our dreams, our hopes, our desires should be aligned with what the organization's dream is. Only then you would be able to achieve your goals, and your goals would help the organization achieve its goals. Then it attracts the right talent. So, a distinct and positive culture becomes a magnet for talent that shares similar values. Have you ever wondered why people are attracted towards organizations like Tata, like Infosys, like Google, Microsoft. The reason behind this is they have an extremely positive work culture. They love innovation. They are people centric. They reward innovation. They like loyal and trustworthy people. They do not micromanage their people. So that is the reason why the right talent would actually want to work in such organizations. So if you have, or if you have created that kind of a culture in your organization, positive and right minded people would be attracted towards them. And then it becomes a loop. When good people come, of course, their productivity, efficiency, the brand value of the organization also enhances. Then it boosts the performance and competitive advantage. Of course, companies with a strong culture often outperform their competitors because of higher trust, better collaboration and a clear identity. And this point is, we can say, an extension of what we just did, that it attracts the right talent. So, if right kind of people are coming, they are inherently motivated because they are attracted towards that strong culture that you hold. So, if right kind of people are coming, they are understanding your culture and they want to work with you because of the shared values or similar values, then automatically you are going to beat your competitors, because ultimately it is the people behind the success of the organization. And if they are able to understand your culture and take forward this culture, nobody can beat you. So, automatically this boosts the performance and the organization would be having a competitive advantage. So, the next question is that how to create an organizational culture. What are the various steps? So, if you are a new organization, how do you build a culture? How do you create a culture? So, in this process, the first step would be defining the vision, mission and your core values. So, we have already understood about the importance of vision, mission, core values and what is its impact on organizational culture. So, you have to articulate the purpose. Purpose means why you exist as an organization, and your vision, which is where you are going. Why are you there and where you want to go? What you are and where do you see yourself? So, you have to clearly articulate this. Then define your core values that will guide your behavior. So, of course, if you want to reach somewhere, you have to take certain steps, you have to take some actions. So, what are those actions and how will you take those actions? What tasks you would be doing to achieve your vision? So, a tech startup, for example, might value innovation, agility and openness. So, these are their core values. So, you have to articulate it, means you have to write it down, you have to tell it to your people that this is what we stand for and this is where we want to reach. So, the second step in this process would be involve leadership from the start. So, you have to involve your people from day one, and specifically when I say people, it is the people in the leadership roles. So, leaders must model the culture they want to create. So, they have to first follow themselves. So, if you want to have a culture or an ethical culture or a culture of trust, so first you as a leader must start trusting your people and show yourself to be a trustworthy leader. If you want to have a culture of innovation. Be open-minded, invite people, let them speak, let them share. Only then you can build a culture of innovation, because innovation again needs open-mindedness, risk taking. Invite people, encourage them to take risks, create a psychologically safe environment for your people. So that is what we mean when we say that leaders must model the culture they want to create. So whatever you want to create, first start working yourself in that direction, because their actions and decisions would set the tone. So on one hand, if you want to have an ethical culture, but you yourself as a leader are using unethical means of doing things, of getting things done, then do you think you will be able to create an ethical culture or an ethics driven culture or a values driven culture when your own values are compromised? Of course not. So culture begins at the top but must be lived at every level. So the leaders should start building or start creating the culture by their little actions, whatever they are doing in the organization. But how does it percolate down is how people understand, how people observe their leaders doing certain things. So that is why we say that you have to involve leadership from the start. Then step 3 in the process is hire for cultural fit. An extremely important, and this is where I feel that the role of HR would come when we talk of hiring people who are aligned with your culture. So recruit people who align with the organization's value and not just their skills. So no matter how skilled a person is, he might be a star performer in the previous organization, but if his or her values are not aligned with your organization's values, then he or she is going to be a culturally misfit for your organization, and you should avoid hiring, recruiting such kind of people, because in the long run they are not going to help the organization because their values are not aligned. So you can use behavioral interviews and value based assessments to understand what skills and what values is the person bringing in. So you have to be very careful when you are hiring people, and you should give more importance to the cultural fit than to the skills. Then step 4 would be create rituals and symbols. So what are rituals? Rituals are how do you celebrate success in the organization. Even sometimes the birthdays of the employees are also celebrated. Weekly check-ins are also there, employee recognition events are there. So that becomes a ritual, that every time if there is a birthday, we are going to celebrate it. Every time if somebody has achieved something, we are going to organize an event and recognize the contribution of that employee. So these are certain rituals. So you must create these type of rituals which would become a culture. So down the lane, if the organization has just started, this ritual will become a culture, that it is our culture that we celebrate our birthdays. It is our culture that we celebrate the recognitions or the achievements of our employees. So that is how a ritual becomes a culture. Similarly, your symbols, the office design, the dress code, the logo, the slogans that you use, they also become the culture, and they are equally important when we talk about creating the culture. So some office designs or you might have seen certain showrooms which have a peculiar design, and every design, no matter where it is located, it would have the same style of designing, how the placement of the products is there, how people meet you and greet you, what is the dress code of that people, that would remain the same. That again becomes the identity and a part of the organizational culture. And these make values visible and memorable. So, you have to create these rituals as well as the symbols. Then step 5 and extremely important is communicate and reinforce culture continuously. So, you have built a culture, but how do people come to know about it? People who are just joining your organization, how would they come to know? You have to communicate it. So, you can use onboarding, you can use the team meetings, newsletters and storytelling to communicate these values. It can be a very subtle kind of a way to tell the new hirees that this is our culture, this is what we do, or you can even use newsletters whereby you post or you print some pictures of the celebrations of maybe birthdays or anniversaries or recognizing their contributions, their achievements. So, with that the new people who are joining, they come to know that okay, this is their culture, this is how they interact with people, this is how they want to uplift people, this is how they celebrate, this is how they dress up. So, that is communicated through onboarding, team meetings, newsletters. You must share success stories that reflect your culture. So, what happened? There was some project, how people came together, how they worked on it day in, day out, and how they succeeded in it. So, when you share these success stories, everybody feels motivated because they also want to be a part of that success story sooner or later. So, when you take pride in sharing these success stories, everyone feels motivated. And this is nothing but reinforcing your culture, because of course they are observing the culture, but at the same time it is important that you communicate and make sure that it is reinforced. That is what makes the culture consistent and stable. If you are not reinforcing it, it might get diluted. Then you need to align the policies and processes. Again, where the role of HR comes in, you have to make sure that your HR policies, your reward systems, promotions and even punishments reflect the culture. So, if on one hand you are saying that you like to have a loyal people, or loyalty is your forte, and you want to promote people who are loyal, who are trustworthy. But on the other hand, when it comes to the promotion part, you are promoting people who are not that trustworthy or maybe who have just joined, which means that your HR policies are not aligned or they do not reflect the culture of your organization. Again, if you want to have ethical behavior, but you are promoting people who are using unethical means, again there is disalignment in your policies and the organization's culture. So, you have to walk the talk. Whatever you are claiming your culture to be, you have to act accordingly. You have to promote and punish people accordingly. So, if collaboration is valued, don't promote individual performers. If you say that you value collaboration, then promote people who are collaborating, who are maybe good in teamwork. So, if you are promoting somebody who is an individual performer, who is not very suitable for a collaborative project, then it again means that your policies are not aligned with the culture. Then step 7 would be train and develop cultural champions. So, identify and empower employees who naturally embody the culture. So, it is very important that until and unless you empower your people who are embodiment of your culture, and you can also use them as mentors or ambassadors for new hires, so that new hires come to know that okay, this is what is required, this is what I have to be in the coming future. So, you must train and develop cultural champions. Then measure and monitor cultural health. You can use surveys, feedback tools and performance matrix to track cultural alignment. So, after hiring also you have to ensure whether the person you had hired is culturally fit, culturally aligned with the organization's culture or not. And then maybe you can give them the feedback or train them accordingly, and be willing to adapt culture as the organization evolves. So, here are certain real world examples. Google core values is innovation, openness, data driven decisions, and there are certain rituals that they use 20% time for personal projects. Practices, there is a flat hierarchy, not too structured, or there these hierarchical structures are not there, and there are open spaces which fosters collaborative work. And what is the result of all this? Google's culture supports creativity, psychological safety and performance. So, friends, we had started an interesting topic of changing and creating organizational culture, and up till now we have learnt as to how to create an organizational culture, what are the various steps involved in creating an organizational culture. So, we will continue with the topic. Thank you.